And ladies and gentlemen, we will start this conference with a bang. We will have a keynote about the state and the outlook of the LatAm fleet market 2022-2025. And we do that together with our partner Frost & Sullivan. The keynote will examine the status of the LatAm fleet market and its outlook for the upcoming years, with attention for economic dynamics, but also the automotive and fleet market evolutions. Here is for you Lorena Isla. She is the Director Mobility Latin America at Frost & Sullivan. Lorena, welcome.
Thank you so much, Stephen, Daniel, and Pascal, for the invitation to participate in such a great event. I'm very happy to be here with you. And of course, for those that do not know me, my name is Lorena Isla, and I am the Director for Research and Consulting for the Mobility team in Latin America for Frost & Sullivan. Frost & Sullivan is a global growth consulting company that has been in the market for over 60 years now, and we have almost 20 in Latin America. So today I'm gonna discuss about the situation of the fleet and leasing market in Latin America. I'm just gonna briefly show you some numbers for Argentina, Brazil, and Mexico, which are probably the most important markets in the region. And of course, we do cover other countries. But if you are interested, you can contact me later on, and I will provide you and show you what we have available. So the Argentinian market is the less relevant in terms of the numbers and also in terms of penetration. About 9% of the total vehicle market in this country is dedicated to company car registrations. And this has several reasons why, but probably the most important is that there are not so much benefits for companies utilizing the leasing model for their fleets, right? There are no, compared to other countries that we have and that we will see later on, they don't offer any tax incentives, and it's only for those companies that are in the taxi market, in the ride-hailing market, and car rentals that may get these benefits. So in Argentina, it's more common to do outright purchase of the vehicles, and we don't expect this penetration to increase a lot along the forecast period, just because some regulations need to change in order for the leasing market to achieve higher penetration. However, there are some opportunities or some highlights, and one is for the leasing of light commercial vehicles. That is the one that has been growing a lot, especially in the last couple of years after the pandemic. And I believe for leasing companies, like showing the availability of value-added services that they can add to the fleet purchase may bring additional value and additional penetration. As long as companies see the other benefits of, like, for example, including maintenance or connectivity and all the benefits that this brings, penetration might increase in the near future. Now, Brazil is the largest market of the region in terms of not only in total numbers, but also in terms of penetration. As of now, around 35% of the total vehicle market is represented by company cars. And this, of course, has to be comparable to Argentina with the benefits that companies get for utilizing these financial models, right? The leasing models can be deducted from tax payments, but not only that, right? It's also they get some access to preferential rates compared to other countries that do not have this type of benefits. And that is why the Brazilian market, despite the fact that the penetration dropped with the pandemic, we see that the penetration will continue growing for the upcoming years. However, some opportunities there for leasing companies. is that what we've been discussing with fleets and also with other leasing companies in the country is that there is still a lack of awareness, and companies still see this type of services as very rigid and bureaucratic processes. So as long as leasing companies may flexibilize not only the offering but also the processes, we expect that to boost the market for the future. It is true also that Brazil is kind of like pioneering in other additional services or models for purchasing vehicles, such as vehicle subscription, that has been growing a lot in Brazil lately for the last year or so. Many different companies, car rental companies, the Movidas, Localizas, they are offering additional subscription services, as well as some of the OEMs that are entering in this market. So of course, this type of services may be seen as competitors for leasing models, but I would say we have to see them more as a complementary or as an alternative option for leasing companies to offer this type of flexibility, especially on the process, because companies in general see very bureaucratic processes for leasing services. Now, Mexico is probably between the two countries that we have reviewed already. Penetration is low, but not as low as in Argentina, with about 15% of the total vehicle fleet, of the total vehicle market dedicated to company cars, because fleets is a little bit higher than this, but still the penetration is not as high as in other countries like Brazil. And this has to be a lot about the lack of awareness of companies and individuals about the benefits that they can get by hiring this type of services. It is true that, I mean, there are some tax benefits that are basically for companies. Individuals are treated differently, but for the tax benefits, it's important for leasing companies to communicate and try to educate more the market in order to increase this penetration. Of course, I mean, we don't expect the penetration to increase a lot in the next 3 years, but there is a big room of opportunity, especially what we are seeing with some of the, let's say, the European companies entering this market, is that they are offering a lot of flexibility, and Mexican companies are receiving that very well. In terms of having the ability to add some specific services and kind of like more a la carte type of service offering, right? And companies are willing and to adopt, and they are trying, just because they have also seen that they like this type of full service leasing really make the lives easier of fleet managers. Now, of course, the vehicle market, the leasing market has been facing a lot of challenges recently. Some of them derive from the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. Some of them still persist, and some of them have been added just because of the recent things that are happening in Europe. But for example, the supply chain delays and the lack of vehicle inventories is really becoming a headache for leasing companies and for fleet managers as well, right? Because they cannot get what they are looking for. And we expect this to continue at least for the rest of the year, because the Ukraine war is just adding additional burdens, and we expect that towards the end of half of the year or end of the year, these disruptions will continue. Obviously, the rising fuel prices is adding a lot of pressure on cost, but like companies are finding somehow ways to adapt and to integrate all these challenges into the short-term future of the market. I would say if we focus kind of like more on the medium term, there are a lot of trends that are offering alternatives and opportunities to overcome the challenges that we have already discussed. And I'm not gonna talk about the 8 trends that we have identified, but I will probably focus on or mention at least 3 of them. And I think one of the most important is the perspective of growth of EV adoption for fleets. I would say I'm going to discuss more later in detail about this, but what we are seeing we have been covering this electrification market for the last 8 years, more or less. And we are seeing a lot of, advancement in terms of the opportunities that this bring. And one of the sectors that is actually driving this growth is definitely corporations, right? For many different reasons, companies are looking and are really having important targets to electrify their fleets. Not only the delivery fleets, but also passenger cars for their employees. And this is something that is going to represent a big opportunity for leasing companies. The second trend that I would like to highlight is connectivity. Of course, now vehicles are becoming kind of like smartphones with tires. And I think this is beyond what this represents in terms of infotainment or let's say comfort features for the driver. It brings a lot of good opportunities for fleet leasing companies and also for fleet managers, right? Connectivity is providing tons of great information, tons of great data that will allow fleet managers to save a lot of cost. It's not only about having visibility of where their fleet is operating, but many different alternatives, such as doing predictive maintenance, understanding how the vehicles are driven, offering flexibility for payments, in-car payments. All this will bring not only additional comfort to the driver, but also a very good perspective for fleet managers to understand and to be able to save cost. And for leasing companies, of course, it represents additional revenue streams that will need to be kept in mind. And the third trend, of course, is the new mobility services. Now, as companies, we need to integrate these mobility services just because they offer higher flexibility and better services for our own clients and for the clients of our clients, which are the end users. So discussing about, I'm just not going to go in detail in each of these trends, but as I mentioned before, right, electrification, we see a lot of focus in the region. It's not only governments that are focusing on that, but more importantly, companies that are really adopting the ESG type of activities for many different reasons, environmental awareness, social responsibility. And we see a big trend of companies wanting to adopt electric vehicles for their fleets. Of course, there are some challenges. Yes, not every country in the region is still prepared for this. We have a huge challenge in terms of the pricing. But for companies, I believe one of the reasons why companies are actually being early adopters is just because the total cost of ownership is amazing. Once you start doing the analysis of the financial analysis of the running cost of a hybrid vehicle or an electric vehicle, yes, of course, the prices are higher, which we expect that to, along the forecast period, to close the gap, but also the cost of running, right? So I believe, of course, some other challenges about charging, but the offering is becoming super wide and super attractive, and we expect a lot of integration of electrification among fleets. Now, we need to consider that some of the pandemic challenges or restrictions that we saw from a couple of years are probably changing the way people move, and we expect that to those changes to stay, right? And of course, it's very related to the hybrid working model that a lot of companies are expected to adopt for good. And not only that, right? Like employees are also demanding this type of flexibility because they see that that they can be more productive, that the time that they dedicate to commute is not always very productive. So this is going to change what our clients are going to be looking for, right? Because employees are demanding more flexibility, not only in terms of hybrid working models and being able to work from home, but also in the way we move, right? The employees are going to be looking, and we are seeing great examples in some cities in Europe, where companies are starting to offer more mobility budgets and adopting mobility budgets more than car purchasing budgets, just because for everyone it has been more effective and more efficient to include additional mobility service models. This, of course, has to be with the concept of that is switching from ownership of vehicles to usership, right? And this is also related because if employees are going to be working more from home or part-time or with these hybrid work models, the type of vehicles are also going to change. Like probably company cars are going to be switching more from these smaller cars that are used to get into cities every day to probably a more comfortable vehicles for our employees, because while in the city they would probably be using some other services such as ride hailing or car sharing services. So I just want to be conscious of time. I believe there is a lot of things to discuss, and I look forward for the rest of the session today. But I believe I'm going to focus just in some opportunities that we can see both as fleet managers and as leasing companies. And it's about some transformations that we are seeing. I have mentioned already some of the lack of the product awareness that is more on the fleet, on the leasing companies to kind of educate the companies about the benefits that they can get, not only on the financial side, but more on the holistic perspective of the benefits that not owning and not operating a fleet can bring to companies, and the cost savings that they can have by doing this. And of course, I mean, adding more, some of the transformations that these companies need to do as well is adding these additional mobility models and not only focusing on a fleet management only, right? And in terms of, I mean, the opportunities that we see, of course, in the region now, higher penetration is on big corporations, global companies, but there is a lot of potential on small and medium enterprises as well. So as long as we can offer them, flexibility and affordable prices, the potential is very big, because these companies do not want to have a dedicated staff operating and running these fleets. I have already mentioned about the electric vehicle leasing market, which has a lot of potential, especially for the medium term. And another opportunity that we have not discussed, but that is there, is the used car leasing market. We are seeing in other regions that this market is growing a lot. We see already some examples in Brazil, and I believe in Argentina as well, that Toyota is launching, that is adding more productivity to our own fleets, right? Like these services are less expensive, and they normally they still have vehicles that are newer than the average fleet in Latin America, and they open up additional revenue streams for leasing companies and additional benefits for fleet managers adopting and looking for cost savings for their own fleets. So thank you so much. I just wanted to make sure that I was on time, and I will be here for any questions you may have. And of course, if you need my contact details, also just send me a chat, and I will be sharing those with you. Thank you so much again for the opportunity for Fleet LatAm, and I'm here for any questions you may have. Thank you.